Hello, this is Catherine Dubberly, the Answer Lady. I'm a big fan of Kiss Looms. I greatly enjoy mine, and I am cooperating with Kelly at Kiss Looms to make you a playlist of all the basic techniques that you might ever want to know on all of the looms. So welcome and enjoy.
I am swatching on a brand new style of Kiss loom. Meet the Dragon. We're going to compare its gauge to the Nifty Knitter. So I am using two bulky number 6 yarns. I'm going to compare two different stitches. This time I'm working the U stitch. This is a famous Kiss U stitch. In my opinion, the easiest loom knitting stitch and the one that gets the most even results and the most like hand knitting. And we go around the pins and in front of the pegs every stitch. You can do it stitch by stitch. I'm accustomed to knitting an entire row, so that's what I did. Then we knit the bottom loop, which is already an existing stitch, over the top loop, and we're done. It's not necessary to wrap terribly tightly because once you get used to them, the pins hold on to the yarn for you. And all of this adds up to less stress on your hands and less stress on the loom, and a very, very nice stitch. So this is the 10th row of my U-knit stitch, and you really can't see the gauge till I get it off. So we'll do that in a minute. Now I'm going to knit a separating row of a contrasting color and go to E-wrap. Many Kiss loomers never E-wrap at all. They just always use the U-stitch. I'm actually one of them. I hardly ever do this. But for the sake of comparison, it would be interesting to see how it works, so we'll do it. And it works just as any other loom E-wrapping, with the slight difference that every time you finish wrapping one peg, you must go behind the next pin, behind the pin, before wrapping the next peg. And that's all there is to E-wrapping on the Kiss. At first glance you might think it'll be tricky, but it's not at all. And here we go. Knitting over in the usual way. Again, some people prefer to E-wrap one peg at a time, knit over that stitch, and then move on. I'm not one of them. I like to wrap the whole row. But this one is not cast in stone. You do it the way you like. I'm going to knit 8 rows, and then we'll come back and try something different. All right, we're done on the Dragon. I want to move my swatch over to the Nifty Knitter. So here's a trick that I use sometimes. I'm using a small circular needle to pick up each stitch in order and be a stitch holder that will easily allow me to transfer from loom to loom. Well, you don't normally change looms in mid-project. This is a handy thing to know because sometimes you do need to take the work off for some reason, maybe to fix a mistake, maybe to hold some stitches, and this works very nicely. Now I can work from either end that I want. I think it may be easier for me to slide this down and work from this end. So we'll try that, but I could easily work from the other end. And one at a time, we'll take the stitch off of the circular needle, moving it back as needed, pick it up, and settle it on the Nifty Knitter. I did my separating row in green, that's what you're looking at, and these are twisted stitches, E-wrapped stitches. But if I find that it would be easier, since these don't count in the gauge, I can untwist that E-wrap like this to give me a little bit more room to hang it. Since this loom has knobs on the end of the pegs, that can be helpful. And I won't actually be measuring the area knitted with the green yarn. It's just to separate the segments. So here we are. Just a few more to go. You may notice that I used 2 strands of green because it's a worsted weight yarn, a number 4 yarn. And most of the time we would use number 6 yarn on either the Nifty Knitter or the Dragon. Number 5 would be a possibility, but if we used number 4 weight yarn, we would almost certainly use multiple strands. So that's what I did to separate. So my stitches would stay more or less the same size as those surrounding them. Okay, we are ready to E-wrap the Nifty Knitter. This will be a familiar operation to you if you're already a loom knitter. This is what you're used to doing. Again, I tend to knit my whole row at once, or wrap it at once and then knit it off all at once. If you prefer to go stitch by stitch, that's fine. Comes out just about the same for most people. I think it's both a little bit quicker and a little bit more even to do the whole row. But that's me. All of our styles vary. So I will do 8 rows of this, and then I'll see you. Now it's time to do our U-stitch segment on the Nifty Knitter. U-stitch on the Nifty Knitter, it works differently. We want the yarn to make a U shape around the peg. Otherwise, you'll just get flat stitch if you do like this. And it's going to be too tight. Nobody likes it on this loom. But you can get the U-stitch in the same manner if you lift up, over, and then give a tug. Do you see how the gray yarn did make a U around? So it's your choice whether you wrap stitch by stitch, holding the yarn around so you guarantee that it got a good piece, or you wrap loosely, lift, pull, and I find the results to be just the same for me, but your personal style will determine what works best for you. We want to compare the gauge of the U-stitch done in this manner, which is the only way you can do it on the Nifty Knitter, with the U-stitch done wrapping around the pins on the Dragon. So I will knit a few rows of this and then we'll look at it together. Okay, to remind you what you're looking at, this is Lion Woolies, a number 6 super bulky yarn. This is Lion Hometown USA, also a number 6 bulky yarn. In both swatches, the bottom area was knitted on the new Dragon loom, and the swatches actually match. They got 4.33 stitches and 7 rows for 2 inches in U-stitch. Then on both looms, I got the same gauge of 4 stitches and 6 rows per 2 inches in E-wrap stitch. This and this, and this and this came out the same. So for E-wrap, the new Dragon loom is a perfect gauge match for the Nifty Knitter. And the U-stitch is tighter on the Nifty Knitter than it is on the Dragon loom. And I personally wouldn't want to use it for garments. It makes a stiff fabric. Now, pot holders, that'd be great. You don't want to be able to feel through the fabric in a pot holder. But just for your information, if you're new to knitting, only use natural fibers for pot holders, no acrylic. They can melt, and it's terribly hazardous if it happens. I got 5 stitches and 8 rows for 2 inches on the Nifty Knitter. Then that compares to the 4.33 stitches and 7 rows for 2 inches in the U-stitch using the new Dragon loom. In my opinion, this fabric is suitable to things like hats if you wanted to make it. It's a little bit softer. It's still pretty windproof, but it's not going to feel like a helmet. It'll feel like a hat.